Hello, this is Chris Bennett. Join us weekly at Pot TV on the Burning Shiva Hour as we explore the roots of cannabis culture throughout history and around the globe. On pottv.net, home of the herb. Hey, welcome to another edition of Burning Shiva Hour. I have my old pen pal, international mystery man and psychedelic man, Thom Lyttle here. Hey, Tom, must have been writing each other for like over a decade now, eh?
Oh, it's worse than that. It's the guys walked into my dream world, and I decided I had to work with them. And
you published my first essay.
Well, I recognize a nutcase when I see one, and so I grabbed hold of him, published him, and the rest is history. He helped me get my career started, publishing my many books, and no thanks. And I helped him, and we're old brothers, spiritual brothers as well as publishing brothers. And good God, it's the apocalypse, and
we're here for the unveiling.
Congratulations, we made it, pal.
Yeah,
we get to watch the end of the world.
May we live in interesting times? Yes.
Interesting times, well, good God, it's like I don't know what to say. I'm speechless.
Yeah, well, it's a lot of fun.
It's beyond interesting.
I think the big thing to do is take part in it, man. Like, don't be an observer and watch. Be a character and play.
Well, let's put it this way. 2003 is the culmination of many myths. Those myths involve the revealing of secrets. What was formerly initiatic and held secret has now been brought out into the open. In alchemy, there is a process where you take information and you bury it, and you keep it hidden away from light. And then after it's buried and fermented, it's brought forth back into the light. Such isn't just done with chemicals and objects. Such things are done with information, and information about specific subjects.
The word.
Psychedelics, off and on through history, has been brought into the light and then has been reburied. Information about it has been reburied. Now we're seeing a renaissance, a recurrence. It was buried down in the well. Now the truth about psychedelics is coming out of the well, and the purveyors, the people that are carrying the information on silver platters, are here. They're here in the open. They're speaking. That's basically the crux of my publishing, is to collect these pundits and experts from all over the world. Many of them are in universities. Many of them are authors. Some of them are sitting in ashrams. Some of them are in rock and roll bands. Some of them are living in cardboard boxes on the street or in squats, but they're there and they're speaking, and they're pissed off and they're loud, and they've got truth, and it's a big truth.
I hear that, man. Well, I have to say, one of the things I found myself lately, I haven't been enjoying psychedelics because I feel like there's pressure to take care of things in the material world, to spread the word. It's like, now you got the word, spread the word. And that every time I trip now, I don't know, I feel like just a compulsion that I'm not accomplishing.
Okay, when we as a culture rediscovered psychedelics in the 50s and the 60s, it basically blew our culture apart. It blew individuals' minds, and it blew the group mind of our culture apart, okay? One of the side effects of the original emergence of psychedelics into our culture was fanaticism, was the creation of cults. And in fact, some of the early researchers actually used terms like cultogen, which is a substance that, by its ingestion, creates a fanatic or a cult-like psychology. Now, that doesn't mean that when a person takes a psychedelic drug that they're going to see God and have a revelation and join a cult, although that happened in many cases. In the 60s especially, we saw the direct result of LSD manifesting in a variety of communes. For example, Stephen Gaskin and the Farm. Also the Hare Krishna movement.
Charlie Manson and the gang on the dark side.
On the dark side, Charlie Manson, the Divine Light Mission was basically, and Guru Maharaj Ji were just built basically from the ground up by psychedelic people. And then we later on started to have information cults. People like Steve Jobs and people involved with Apple Computer, as well as
So those guys were trippers.
well, it says in his biography that before he would hire anyone for the original Apple core group, the questionnaire included, "Have you ever taken LSD?"
Wow.
He himself acknowledged that LSD triggered insights and revelations, and basically inspired him to come up with some software designs. And his
Did he
core,
name it Apple, like because of forbidden knowledge, do you think?
I don't know about that part, but I do know that part of his core group was Bob Wallace, who was a Microsoft employee, I think number 8 or 9. Bob Wallace is well known to the world of psychedelics. He was the owner of a very popular book service called Mind Books. He recently was found dead. He was his death caused a worldwide stir. UPS picked up on it and other things because of his influence in creating Microsoft.
Wow.
He basically retired on the stock that he got from Bill Gates, was a multimillionaire, took part of that money and basically started a psychedelic book service supplying knowledge to people all over the planet.
Wow.
That book catalog probably, you're familiar with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
It probably lists, I don't know, 80 to 90 titles at a time, including all my 8 books.
He doesn't carry mine because they're about pot.
Nevertheless, he was an important player, and the point being is that psychedelics cause radical social change wherever they appear, whether it's in Western world, Eastern world, whatever, and not just religious upheaval, but changes in technology are directly related to the appearance of psychedelics.
I agree.
The modern home computer is a direct result of people taking LSD. Bob Wallace, not to harp on Bob Wallace, but his contribution was something called shareware, known to every PC user and internet surfer. Shareware was created by Bob Wallace on an LSD trip. He said so. He wasn't shy about saying so. That's a fact of life.
Nice. Well, let me give you one quote I had in
Yeah.
USA Today on Election Day last year when they did a story about Pot TV. I said, if the pen is mightier than the sword, then the PC is mightier than the atomic bomb.
Well, it's mightier than the human mind.
Yeah.
And definitely it is the new it is the new learning medium. It's basically overshadowed books, sad to say, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you know, it's questionable as to whether the exposure of such a thing so rapidly into our culture is a good or a bad thing. However, psychedelics did the same thing.
Oh, well,
they came like a bombshell,
Yeah.
and we're still figuring out what happened.
Well, it's like the internet's the manifestation of the collective unconscious in the material realm in some way. You know, and you want to find out anything, just pump a couple of keywords into Google, and bang, it's all there.
Well, I guess the important thing is that the psychedelic experience for many is it's a multimedia experience. You're bombarded by thousands of images in thousands of contexts in thousands of ways. Your emotions go haywire. You're capable of experiencing several emotions simultaneously, which usually doesn't happen. And it was the precursor to the internet. It showed us that we are creatures of information, that our brains run on information and our bodies are built of information. That while we are physical, we are also data and code.
And we're all breaking apart right now as we speak. Molecules,
Well,
atoms are all falling off.
there's a-
Ideas are changing.
What psychedelics did was it brought new metaphors into our culture, which then graduated into cybernetic metaphors.
Well, quantum physics would have even taken place really without
Well,
the
there's some-
psychedelic culture?
Well, there's some heavy influences. There's many modern sciences and philosophies that have been directly influenced by psychedelics. Besides cybernetics, there's a branch of mathematics called systems theory, which basically studies the behavior of large groups of people and large groups of machines with each other. That's directly came out of people that took LSD. Gregory Bateson and some other people.
Nice.
Well,
Ralph Abraham.
Ralph Abraham and Terence McKenna himself, the well-known pundit, prophet, some say, basically made his fame with by combining old-time religion with cyberspeak, okay, and basically laced cybernetic metaphors over psychedelic mysticism and visionary states. He was the first of, I guess McKenna was the first of the new cyber prophets connected with psychedelic use.
What's your synopsis on McKenna?
Well, I've talked to him. I didn't know him too well. I knew a lot about. I've read, but first of all, I'm a big, huge fan of McKenna. I have every book that he's published, as well as a lot of his unpublished things in my collection. I didn't know him personally very well. I published.
How about his work, though?
Well, let
Do
me
you
talk.
agree with that?
Well, one of his most controversial works was a computer program called Time Wave Zero. This was a software game basically based on the I Ching, and it had to do with more or less an attempt to map out waves of novelty. And by that I mean he was attempting to fortune tell using a computer and fortune tell using psychedelics, and he used cybernetic metaphors. His programmer for Time Wave Zero, the guy that wrote the computer code, was a guy named Peter Meyer, who worked with me closely on my books. I published several of Peter Meyer's articles on Ganesh Baba and different psychedelic gurus and so forth. So I like McKenna a lot. Never met him. I'm a student of McKenna, like all of us are.
Yeah. I really dug Food of the Gods, but I kind of felt that McKenna got lost in the Bardo and his psychedelic trips, and he started taking a look at all the Bardoic images and thinking that that was it, instead of going further to the clear white light.
I don't want to spend too much time on McKenna, but my basic argument with him, which no one seems to have pursued, is that he tried to be all things to all people, and he tried to be too encyclopedic and have a say on every subject, and he fell short in many ways. He was brilliant in some ways. In other ways, he was just dead wrong, which has been proven after the fact. I don't mean to. Certainly, it's not the time and the place to go into his shortcomings because of his recent death. But there does need to be further analysis and critiques of his work, and that's
Food of the Gods is a brilliant book.
What hasn't appeared in the press are critiques of his work, and that's what I'm waiting to see. Okay.
Yeah, I could live with that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like the whole influence on science, that's just incredible. Carl Sagan, too, was like a pothead as well.
Oh, yes. Well, there's not only Carl Sagan, but many, many, many important scientists, major filmmakers. It's just coming to light. Like I said, these things are just being revealed now. For example, Stanley Kubrick, the famous filmmaker who did 2001 and Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise, was a major proponent of psychedelics, as are many, many important people in Hollywood and the sciences and in our universities. We do live in an oppressive time, especially in America. There is a war on drugs. People are afraid to come forth and speak. Others speak openly. These are interesting times. I collect the best of those that have the courage to speak, and I publish their work. My books are sold in 30 countries. And
yeah, show him a couple of your books there, just to grab them up. This is the guy. If you want to find out about psychedelics, his books, psychedelic monographs and essays, and other books, you got to have them.
Well, these are my two most recent books. I started my career by publishing an academic journal called Psychedelic Monographs and Essays. It basically was sold to university libraries and collectors of psychedelic esoterica. I combined professors and radicals from the underground. Basically, they were anthologies. I attempted to be multidisciplined, I guess you could say. I combined credentialed researchers with people off the street. Anyone that had important things to say, they could back it up. They made it into my books. This book, Psychedelics, was published by Lyle Stewart, a famous New York City publisher. It's a best of that journal.
And this is what, Psychedelics Reimagined?
Well, this is a book I did a couple of years ago. This is done, Psychedelics Reimagined, again, is an anthology. It's a collection of articles by different scholars, pundits, and professors, also underground radicals, all holding forth about psychedelics. There's some great stuff in here.
I'm in there. It's got my first essay I ever wrote on cannabis and religion, so if you want some primordial Chris Bennett, this is the book for it.
Yes, one of Chris's best.
It was my first essay.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of by the way, the introduction is by Timothy Leary and Hakim Bey, the well-known anarchist philosopher. So I've pulled together a lot of important voices. power players, if you will, from the psychedelic world into one source here. If anyone's into reading and books, they can contact me. And my email is thomlyttle@aol.com. You can always reach me there, and I'll give them more information about the books. But that's not my only project.
Yeah. Let's talk about your blotter art. You know, like you take like blotter sheets and you blow up the pictures.
Everybody in the psychedelic world knows that when you buy LSD, it usually comes on perforated paper, and you tear off a little perforation and you swallow it. And what happened after the 70s was that this perforated paper started to have cartoon characters on it, different types of psychedelic art. Some of the more famous brands of LSD, which was sold on the black market, for example, would be Mr. Natural Acid, Mickey Mouse Sorcerer's Apprentice Acid. People remember these things. For a while there was things like album covers, which were rock and roll album covers that were made into blotter acid. And over the years, there's several hundred types of blotter acid, or at least images put onto blotter acid, sold all over the world. Some of the more famous ones recently were the famous ones done with Gorbachev, Beavis and Butthead, so on and so forth.
Well, you brought a collection here. We're going to take a look at some of these.
Besides, at a certain point, as surreal as it sounds, people started getting hold of this art and collecting it for collectability's sake. Just like people collect quilts or beer bottle caps or wine labels or perhaps fruit crate labels, people from all over the world that had been influenced by psychedelics, especially LSD, started collecting the artwork that LSD came with. It was kind of like the labels that came along with the LSD. Unbeknownst to everyone, the sheets started appearing dipped and undipped. In other words, you were suddenly able to buy illegal LSD that had some artwork on it, and you also started seeing the undipped sheets appearing in galleries, framed as a new type of folk art. This went on and on for several years, and to the point where today there is a thriving market in undipped LSD blotter art sheets. My main project has been to take these sheets, and we'll show some of them in a minute, and have elders from the psychedelic world autograph them for posterity.
Nice.
In other words, I took undipped sheets of LSD blotter art, one of the most powerful images in the psychedelic world. Everybody knows what LSD is, and anybody that's hip knows what it looks like. It looks like pieces of perforated paper, okay, with different art on it. What most people have never seen, because most people buy, let's say, 2 or 3 hits, they see something that's been torn off of a larger sheet. What I've done is managed to collect and show the complete sheet. In other words, a complete sheet of LSD at a wholesale level usually has 900 or 1,000 doses. Very often there's a very large picture that's divided up into 900 doses. The average person on the street buys 2 or 3 hits of acid. They see something that looks like something, maybe the end of a, let's say one of Ganesh's tusks.
Right.
They see part of that and they eat it, but they know there's a larger picture. How can we see that picture? Well, formerly, the only way you could see the whole picture was to be an LSD wholesaler, or sit in a classroom and have a cop hold it up and beat you over the head with false and fake information about LSD. So you can see it that way. These days you can go to galleries, you can see sheets of 1,000 doses, matted and framed, many of them autographed by famous people whose lives have been changed by LSD. I went around door to door and got some of the most famous researchers involved in LSD, and film actors and film producers, and had them autograph these sheets, basically stating to the world, this is what LSD is, this is what it looks like, I took it, it changed my life, and I'm going to put my name on it. Hang it in a gallery. Let's not ever forget what this substance is and how it changed our world. Some of the people I've worked with who signed for me really are a who's who of the psychedelic world. Albert Hoffman, the inventor of LSD, has autographed my sheets. Timothy Leary, Turn On, Tune In, Drop Out. Ram Dass has worked with me. Allen Ginsberg signed several of my sheets. John Lilly, whose life story has been made into 2 films, Day of the Dolphin and Altered States, signed my sheets. Robert Anton Wilson has signed my sheets. The list goes on, but my most recent projects involve Academy Award winner H.R. Giger, who did the special effects for the film Alien, who is a major psychedelic proponent. His girlfriend, in fact, works closely with Stanislav Grof. I recently, this month, just finished a project with film actor and producer Peter Fonda, two-time Academy Award nominee, who's most famous for his film Easy Rider. In the film Easy Rider, we all have seen it, there's a long sequence involving an LSD trip. Peter Fonda also is famous for producing the first major Hollywood film called The Trip, which was the story of LSD and psychotherapy. It was a famous film back in the 60s, and it's a cult classic today. Peter and I worked together to promote LSD as a healing tool, to promote this art as a message to the world. LSD is here, it's not going away, it's here to stay, it's at a gallery near you. I also work with major auction houses like Harrods and Christie's. And basically we're getting these things hung on people's walls, and we're raising consciousness, and we're changing the bad PR surrounding LSD and allowing people to be happy about it, remember fondly their experiences if they've had experiences, and hang a trophy in their home. A religious artifact, a real religious artifact.
Well, let's take a look at some of these pictures.
Well, this is some samples of the art that I have for sale, and also that are hanging in galleries and are sold over the internet in rare book catalogs. This first one is a beautiful sheet. It's called Tantric Couple. It has 900 doses on it. It's autographed by the most famous Professor Emeritus Alexander Shulgin, who's known affectionately as Sasha. So he signed his name to Sasha Shulgin. This is the grandfather of the ecstasy movement, famous for his books P-Call and T-Call. He's invented over 200 psychedelic drugs. This is his signature on blotter art. Another beautiful piece, again 900 doses, signed by the most famous Harvard researcher, Timothy Leary, who wrote the books Psychedelic Experience, High Priest, and many other important books, and exopsychology and so forth. Dr. Leary signed 250 of these pieces right before his death, and these are offered in catalogs for sale. Mr. H.R. Giger, world famous for his dramatic occult imagery, famous for many books of art, and most famous for winning the Academy Award for his special effects on the film Alien, and then later for his work on the film Species. Mr. Giger is a proponent of LSD. He signed this art, and it's gorgeous. The title of this print is Illuminatus, and it's based on imagery taken from the works of Robert Anton Wilson. Illuminatus deals with a secret society called the Illuminati, which some feel run the world behind the scenes from an occult kingdom. Mr. Giger believes in LSD. Here's his photo and his signature. Mr. Nice, one of the most famous hashish and pot smugglers in the world. Howard Marks. Several books have been written about his notorious career. Most of the world's intelligence communities and police communities, including Interpol, chased him for years. He's reportedly supplied 30%, 40% of the Western world's hashish and marijuana at one point. These days he's out of prison and he's on tour. He has a stand-up comedy act and does theater, reads from his books, and basically tells the tale of his hashish smuggling adventures. This is someone who came in the 60s and 70s, revolutionized hashish smuggling as we know it, basically incorporated the rock and roll world and touring rock bands into a worldwide hashish empire. And when I say empire, multi-millions of dollars were made. He was eventually busted, spent years in prison, is released, and now is an international psychedelic and underground celebrity. Howard Marks believes in LSD. He's taken plenty of it. He's signed these sheets. These sheets, again, are for sale and can be seen on the internet, on several websites, as well as eBay, where we constantly hold auctions. If you go to eBay and type in the descriptors blotter art, you'll see at least 30 different sheets for sale by myself and many other people. Prices range from $15 to $20 for an unsigned sheet, up to $300 to $400 for a rarity from Timothy Leary or Albert Hoffman. Generally, the pricing on these types of autograph sheets run from about $75 up to about $200 to $300, depending upon the fame of the signer, the quality of the signature, and of course the quality of the images, the collectability of the art. These are meant to be framed. As you can see, I get them from the manufacturers in an uncut form, which means that the borders are left on there. These are not meant to be taken and dipped. There's nothing illegal about this. There's no drugs in this art. These are meant to be framed and displayed as a collectible folk art. And a reminder that no matter what goes on in history, psychedelics always will have a say. Whether the powers that are in place like it or not, psychedelics are here, they're powerful, they ain't going away. Here's proof. Here's direct artistic proof. Religious artifacts right in front of your eyes, signed by some of the world's most famous people. One thing I want to mention is that while some of the projects are strictly for profit, we very often work with charities. For example, the Peter Fonda signed art was done in conjunction with two charities. One is Rick Doblin's medical marijuana research. 25% of all sales go directly to MAPS and Rick Doblin, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. Peter Fonda also is interested in battered women's clinics, and so many of my projects involve charity work. Allen Ginsberg signed for me to raise money for the Albert Hoffman Foundation. To contact me, Thom Lyttle, L-Y-T-T-L-E. My address is 5800 Northeast 22nd Way, apartment 510, Fort Lauderdale, Florida 33308. My home phone number is 954-776-1697. That's in the USA, in South Florida. And my email is thomlyttle@aol.com. Hey, peace and love. Glad to be on the show, and I love pot and I love psychedelics. God bless you all.